Thank you for clicking on Star Trek Comic Book Review. Today we are reviewing the recently released Star Trek Holo-ween issue number 2. This was recorded for episode 404, which will be released on October 20th. If you don't mind, please go ahead and click the like and or subscribe and enjoy the show. Alright, so next up is Holo-ween 2, which came out October of 2023. It has the most of the same staff, but I'll go ahead and go through it. Written by Christopher Equera, art by Joe Esma, colors by Charlie Kirchhoff, letters by Clayton Cowles, design production by Neil Utaki, group editor is Heather Antos, and editorial assist by Vanessa Rial. So there's two covers. The first one shows Deanna in a mummy-type outfit. And then before her is Data dressed up as Frankenstein and Riker as a Wolfman. And that is by Francisco Francavilla. And then the other cover is a J.K. Woodward painting, and it shows Riker transforming into a werewolf. And it's not a Wolfman-looking werewolf. This is more like a howling-type werewolf with the big long snout and the nasty fangs. And above this transformation, we see the Enterprise D flying over a full moon. And then color C is just a black and white version of the Mummy Diana one. So the story picks up right where issue 1 left off, with Ripper Redjack and Frankenstein Data wandering the corridors, looking for more crew to grab and pull back into Holodeck 9. Phasers do not seem to slow down the two at all, so Riker is able to get Geordi to lock onto his throne communicator to make a makeshift force field right in front of Data. This seems to do the trick, and the monster's progression into the ship is halted. Later, in the briefing room, the crew discuss options and land on a radical idea Crusher proposes, using a Denoblian method of transplanting personalities onto another person's mind so that they can live completely as a different person for 30 minutes. She proposes that they implant the classic Universal monsters onto select crew members, who can then go into Holodeck 9 looking like they belong there back in the 1800s. They also say that these monster personas will be 100% incapable of feeling fear, and they also will have some sort of augmentation so that they have anti-grav, so that they're stronger, faster than a normal human. There is a risk, however. It says that the person who is brought into this total recall state too early or too late will have irreversible brain damage. So they have exactly 30 minutes from the time they become the monster to the time they become back to their normal selves. Otherwise, they risk permanent damage. Picard agrees with this plan and even says that he will go himself. He takes on the persona of Mr. Hyde. Troy goes in as the Mummy, Riker goes in as the Wolfman, and Worf goes in as a Klingon version of the Gill Man, aka Creature from the Black Lagoon. Once this monster squad enters the holodeck, the clock is set and running. Troy and Worf are there to try to rescue as many captured crew members as they can, while Riker and Picard take on Data and Redjack. So with the augmented strength of the monster squad, Troy is able to smash into the wall hard enough that it knocks out the holodeck emitters and reveals the arch. Riker's Wolfman persona fights Data, and Picard's Hyde persona is in a fight with Redjack. All the fights are somewhat of a stalemate until eventually they start teaming up. Worf and Riker are able to knock down the Frankenstein monster Data to the ground, and they then make their way to Redjack, and they're able to tackle him as well once Picard throws his cloak over his head. Data and Troy are now fighting when Data starts to kind of break away from Redjack's reprogramming. He asks for help, and she in her mummy mode does not respond. Meanwhile, in the control room, Barclay notices that Troy's brainwaves are giving an SOS. That this must mean that Troy wants to break free early from her monster persona. Crusher eventually agrees, saying that they'll take the risk that the Betazoid brain is just more resilient than a human one. Troy becomes herself, and Data requests her for help, so she rips his head clean off his body. Data, in a very Spock's brain type of move, does surgery on himself so that he'll be able to fight off Red Jack's control in the future. Troy puts his head back on, and they start gathering up the crew members to get off the holodeck. The other monster crew are also on their way out, since they instinctively know that they must exit the holodeck after 30 minutes of going in. As they're making their way to the exit, many of the captured crew start picking up pitchforks and torches, and they head off the escaping bridge crew. To be continued.
Spooky, spooky, scary, scary. You know, I kind of like the whole Monster Squad idea, because that's exactly what I call them also. But in my notes, oh my God, they're going through a lot of hard to swallow explanation to make this happen, to make this possible.
Right.
And I'm not digging all the technobabble, whatever, that they use to make this happen, but they made it happen, and I kind of like seeing Picard hide and the other characters in action.
Right. Yeah, and it's kind of weird that, I mean, basically it's the plot of Total Recall, right? So we can input another persona into your brain, and then you'll just think you're that person for 30 minutes, and then you'll go back to normal, or we can snap you out of it. Right. But then it gets you to wondering, I mean, even like with Total Recall, I don't think he was ever actually supposed to get out of the chair. He was just supposed to be implanted with these memories of a vacation without ever actually leaving. So even this Denobulan one, why would thing. You? Yeah. So what value does it give you to become another person, walk around for 30 minutes, and then come back and become yourself? I would really think that you would just, like in Total Recall, just be sitting in the chair for that 30 minutes and you think you did all this other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's just as good. But this had to be real.
Right. For this story, yes.
For this story, yeah.
Yeah.
Although they are on the holodeck the whole time, but they are real on the holodeck.
Right. With augmented strength and powers.
Well, yeah, and the whole so they actually said something about reduced gravity, giving them augmented strength.
Yeah, in their monster personas, they in their costumes, Geordi has put in some anti-grav stuff to make them stronger.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay, I missed that. I missed that line.
Say happened. It doesn't make sense, but
yeah, I don't see the whole reason that you have more strength, if you are in a lower gravity situation, is that your muscles are used to the higher gravity, and now you're in a lower gravity.
Right.
So, I mean, they're still in an environment that's the same gravity. It's the ship's gravity, whatever the ship's set to.
Right.
And so there's supposedly an aura of reduced gravity on them, and that's what gives them enhanced strength. I don't know.
Right. And once Red Jack figured that out, why wouldn't he just program the holodeck walls, which aren't really there, to just be that much more dense to keep them from being able to break through and stuff like that?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But the other good thing is, I mean, and I kind of buy this one, is that you won't have any fear because you're in a different personality state of being or whatever that don't have any fear. So I can understand that being a benefit. It's just this enhanced strength garbage I'm not so sure about.
Yeah. And as far as their personas go, I mean, both the Mummy and the Wolfman are so much more talkative than any Wolfman or
Mummy
movie I've ever seen. I mean,
Yeah.
Troy has all these monologues about, being the queen of time and, all these like blah, blah, blah about her magical powers. And it's just like, oh my goodness.
Defending her people that she's responsible for protecting, or blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, somebody said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could have Picard and the main bridge crew be different horror characters? Right. Great. Okay, how can we make that happen? And then they back into it. It's like they start throwing all these technobabble ideas out. Well, they got to have enhanced strength. How are you going to explain that? Okay, Geordi, reduced gravity field. Okay, fine, whatever. So in the end, you have to just ignore all that and just say, okay, hey, look, Riker's Wolfman. Good.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, it like Cupid and the other Next Generation holodeck episodes. It's just a fun one.
Yeah. Yes.
And I really like that Data has the big giant platform shoes. There's a shot of him when he's fighting Troy,
right,
where you really see the lifts. It's just
exactly.
Oh, that's so funny.
Which is right from the old movies,
right?
Although Karloff was a really tall guy, they still had to put lifts on him, make him look really big. So speaking of that, you just mentioned about Data and the lifts. So that was a nice homage to the original incarnations of Frankenstein. Picard's Jekyll, though. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. So in 1931, Frederick March won the Academy Award for his portrayal of Jekyll and Hyde in one of the many incarnations, or many of the movies. So there was like in 1920 there was a Jekyll and Hyde movie. In 1931 there was a Jekyll and Hyde movie with Frederick March. And then there was another one with Spencer Tracy in the early 40s. So it's like roughly every 10 years for a while there, they were doing Jekyll and Hyde movies. But the Frederick March one, which he got the Oscar for, was heavy, heavy makeup, which in my opinion almost tries to make him look like a caveman or something. But heavy makeup, but that's not Picard. So we're looking at Picard. His face is normal, although he's got, really uncharacteristic scowl on his face, the arched eyebrows and things like that. And so I'm looking at this going, okay, it's interesting what they're choosing to include or not include. However, there was a great, I really enjoyed it, but there was a TV series, a short series called Jekyll. And
yeah. Well, it was a BBC one. I like
exactly that. Right. So Stephen Moffat of Doctor Who and other thing fame. He also was one of the guys behind Sherlock, the TV series. Does great stuff. And this Jekyll show was really good. And the guy that starred in it was James Nesbitt. And he did an awesome job because he had no makeup. So when he was Hyde, it was all arched eyebrows and very specific looks and different angles of his face, but no makeup. So I think the Picard here is more maybe calling back to the Nesbitt version of Jekyll than the Frederick March version.
Right. Yeah, definitely not the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Hyde, which was basically a giant
what was
CG
that one?
Hulk.
There's another version. I was not aware of that one. So, right. And I think they had a more recent Jekyll and Hyde TV show from the Brits. Although really? I don't know much about that.
Yeah, you said every 10 years, and I'm like, I think now there's a lot more than every 10 years before they crank out a new one.
I was talking about back in the
yeah, I know,
early 20th century.
Yeah, I think once it hit public domain, they started cranking them out in earnest.
There you go.
So, what'd you think of the Klingon Gill Man?
At first I was thinking he was an odd-looking creature from the Black Lagoon, but then eventually I reminded me of Worf's explanation of the Klingon, a Mukaran Day aquatic myth monster.
Right.
So I think it was somewhere near the beginning of the first issue. Worf mentions it, and it's like it took me a little while to say, "Oh, that's the That's the Klingon Mercuran guy or whatever. Okay.
Right.
Well, what do you think of his trident bat'leth?
His trilith, as he calls it.
Trilith. Oh, he called it a trilith? Okay.
He
great.
calls it a trilith. It's the most impractical weapon I've ever seen. So basically, it's a bat'leth curve, but instead of it being a blade, it has 3 arrow points poking out of it like a trident.
Right.
But
like a trident. Yeah.
But yeah, you can't cut with it. You can't because it would get stuck on one of the points. It's just very impractical looking. I guess you could stab somebody with those 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you could do damage. It's just not the most effective weapon in the world.
Right.
I agree with you. So
yeah,
I thought it's fine. Fine. It's
at least a trident kind of makes sense, but trying to merge a trident and a bat'leth just came across as a little silly, I thought.
Well, what do you think of Riker as the Wolfman?
I liked Riker as the Wolfman. Like I said, he was a little more talky than I think he should have been.
Yeah, definitely.
He talks all the time.
Yeah. But he still says things like, you smell like something like part of my pack or something to Data when he had Data on the ground.
Right.
So that was like, okay, fine. So we talked about where these different things are getting some of their looks, because you had mentioned the Frankenstein thing, and we talked a little bit about that in the first issue. And then we talked about Picard being Hyde, and we talked about Worf. And what's Riker's inspiration for his look? Or is it totally just made up?
I don't know. I mean, kind of looks like Teen Wolf a little bit. I mean, it doesn't quite look like it doesn't look like it doesn't look like that J.K. Woodward painting at all with the big long snout like a howling. So it looks more like the Wolfman, but not quite like the Wolfman. Kind of like I said, a Teen Wolf thing where he still looks human, but just has some wolf features. What did you think?
Well, I was thinking from the facial standpoint. I mean, yeah, he's lighter than. I mean, the amount of facial hair is a lot lighter than Lon Chaney Jr., who many times he played the Wolfman in the old days, and definitely the face is nothing like the Wolfman that was in American Werewolf in London,
right?
Which was very snouty, very wolfy, as opposed to being kind of sort of more human look.
Right.
But I'm looking at the jackets. Like, what's the deal with the red jacket? Where'd that come from? And what Naughton? I forgot the name of the full name of the actor that was in American Werewolf in London. At the beginning of the movie, he did wear a red coat. So I don't know, but it didn't look like the same. I mean, the red coat that he had was all red. It didn't have white collars. So I didn't know whether it was supposed to be a nod to that, or whether, maybe it's a Teen Wolf thing. You mentioned that. I mean, I think there was a TV show, Teen Wolf, wasn't there?
There was a TV show. I haven't watched that. I just watched the old Michael J. Fox and Jason Bateman movies from the past.
Oh, right. Yeah, and a lot of those things I never saw. So I don't know whether maybe one of those would be more appropriate. But the closest thing I could find was Naughton in American Werewolf in London. And really, that was only a match from a color standpoint.
Right.
And then the flannel shirt, is that supposed to be a match of something? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But yeah, his face basically looks like Riker's, maybe with some peach fuzz, but you can't really tell. Because I mean, you can't tell if his cheeks and forehead have like fine hair, but it kind of doesn't look like it does. So it looks like he just has bushy eyebrows and the beard and hair. That's normal.
Right.
But he does have a dog nose. He does have the dog nose and the pointed ears. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then his hands and his feet definitely look canine with big long claws and everything. Yeah.
And then I think we talked about Deanna before.
Yeah, we talked about her last issue where she kind of looked like she has the headdress of the Hammer movies. Mummy.
Yeah. So I thought it was kind of weak at the beginning. I'm kind of jumping around. When Riker and Worf and about 5 other security people are shooting So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 different phaser beams are going, and it isn't affecting anybody.
Right.
I mean, they're shooting at Rejak and Data as Frankenstein, or Data Stein, or Franken-Data, whatever you want to call him. And it's like, oh my God, I really hate when they make phasers, which are awesomely powerful weapons, totally ineffective.
Right.
So, I mean,
they didn't explain it in the book that I recall, but he is half Borg, and the Borg adapt. So maybe he gave Data the Borg adaptation.
Borg shields.
Yeah.
Borg shields, personal shields.
Exactly.
Maybe. I mean, that is what happened in the first episode or the first issue.
Right.
How he got around that. So
I'm going with that on the Data one too, even though it just looks like the phases are bouncing off of him.
Yeah.
Superman style.
What do you think of the artwork in general?
It's pretty hit or miss. I did go back and reread the last Next Generation Rejak, which I really liked. Those that was a Wildstorm issue. The artwork was fantastic. I thought it was called Embrace the Wolf. So I did go back and reread that, and then now I'm coming back to this one, and I'm just like, man, it's so jarring how different the art styles are, because this is very, I don't know, cartoony. I mean, it looks good, but it's just compared to those paintings, it's just like, wow, it's a little.
And the amount of detail is very light in certain panels. I mean, in particular, when they're in some of their the conference room things talking, there's a drawing of Deanna in particular. There is like no facial detail on Deanna's face at all. I mean, she looks very two-dimensional. I mean, you can see her nose.
Like the style now. I mean, a lot of the IDW Star Trek stuff comes out looking like this. Like it's very two-dimensional.
Another book we reviewed recently was Star Trek 2020 or 2020 issue number 12. And in that issue, I am just knocked out at how good the artwork was, how much detail it is, how much everybody looked like the actors. And the ships look great. I mean, the amount of time it must have taken the artist to do all those kind of things is it must have been a lot of time, because it's just so detailed. And that I like. This, I'm not liking as much.
Well, I mean, not to belittle anybody's work, because I definitely couldn't.
No, no, of course not. None of us can. I'm just stating, but who knows?
But I would also say this is kind of the style a lot of times with especially with the old Kelvin books and stuff. It always seemed like, the background was just like a flat picture. And I mean, it was that was the style, and that's kind of this style too, is just that it looks a little flat.
Yeah, flat, light on detail.
Right.
It's fine. It's great. I enjoyed the book. It's just my personal preference.
Sure, I get it. So speaking of that conference scene, what'd you think of Scotty's little cameo where they're watching some 1960s footage of Scotty being interviewed after the Rejak thing?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I don't think it looks that much like Scotty, but
no, it doesn't look like him at all.
Yeah.
No mustache or anything. No, just kidding. I have a mustache.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks pretty bedraggled. And I think the performance was pretty good in the TAWS episode. I mean, Scotty was really concerned. I mean, he was very upset about potentially having killed this person that they said he did.
Right.
So, and I think they're getting that across in the drawing pretty well.
Right. Yeah, they show it on two different panels, but it's the exact same shot of Scotty. So I guess they paused it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you can reuse a drawing, why not?
Right.
Anyway. Well, since we're looking at things like that, what did you think of the Monster Mash thing that Dr. Crusher is putting up on the wall, where there's like a Brady Bunch set of 9?
Yeah, I wasn't
squares
blown
that
away
have
with that
different
at all.
lasers.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of silly. I mean, and not silly, but just some of the drawings are just very
Meh.
basic.
Yeah. So we got Dracula, and we got Frankenstein, and we got the Mummy, which really is just bandages.
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay, so in the middle, is that supposed to be Paul Lynde? That's just a joke. And you should always center square.
It's a joke I don't get.
So in the Hollywood squares,
yeah.
Paul Lynde would always have the center square.
Gotcha.
And then what is this supposed to be? Hellboy? What's a demon? What is
He
that?
definitely looks like a demon, yeah, with a little black goatee, and yeah, he looks like he and the one right to the left of him are demons, but I don't know what the difference is.
Well, I think the one at the left, who's all red and has fangs and has wings, is probably a little more traditional kind of demon, I would think. Where I think the middle guy is channeling, even though he doesn't have sawed-off horns, he's channeling Hellboy a little bit.
There you go. And then we have an abominable snowman, and then
that looks like abominable snowman,
crocodile man, werewolf, and Medusa.
Yeah, well, crocodile. Yeah, I don't know what the crocodile man is supposed to be exactly. I mean,
a dinosaur, maybe.
I don't know.
Dragon.
The lizard from Spider-Man. I don't know. But what's Medusa doing there? It's like, because you have to have a lady in it to to balance things out. So you grab the Medusa from mythology.
Greek mythology, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's kind of weird. Anyway, whatever.
Spooky character.
Spooky. I mean, why didn't they have Bride of Frankenstein? How about that? You could have had that in there. The big. Well, they probably couldn't fit the hair.
Yeah, well, that character was made specifically for the movies, so maybe to so that they could say we're trying to invoke the books and not the movies. They can't bring in characters that were invented for the movie.
The books. Well,
yeah.
What book was Medusa made for? I mean,
well, that's just Greek mythology. But I'm saying
exactly.
Frankenstein is based on a book that's in public domain. Bride of Frankenstein was created for a movie that may or may not be in public domain. So, all the other ones you can kind of say are public domain general monsters, but you would have to say is specific.
Well, if you're including Frankenstein, I think that would be just as equally slippery slope as Bride of Frankenstein, but whatever. Anyway, so it's cute. It's cute.
I did like the little call out to Denobula.
Right. That's the society that came up with this whole contraption, supposedly.
Right.
Okay. Well, they are a hedonistic society, aren't they?
I was to say, if you had like 7 wives and 7 husbands, I mean, when do you have time to create these 30-minute vacations?
Or get assigned to a starship.
Yeah. Well, as you know, that put a very big strain on his family relationships.
Yes.
We're talking about Dr. Phlox, obviously.
Obviously, yes. There you go.
But anyways, I liked the little call out to him because Enterprise does not get nearly as much love as it should.
There you go. Okay, that's all I have to say about this one personally, except that I am enjoying the series so far. I'm a big Halloween fan, so having a Halloween thing like this, I'm digging.
Right. And my last comment, obviously, is when Troy rips Data's head off, and then Data's doing surgery on his neck stump.
Well, is it him or what?
No.
So all Rejak did is put some device in his neck.
Is that all he's doing? Is like pulling that little piece of bubble gum off?
Yeah, I think so.
Ah, man, I thought that was like a tool, and he was like doing something. But no, I think you're right. I think it's just him yanking off a piece of bubble gum. And then they're able to stick the head back on. Yeah.
It's a little red thing that does kind of look like a piece of bubble gum. I'll agree with that, but it's organic. It's an organic form of technology. I don't know.
But his wire guts obviously look a lot like aliens androids more than Data.
Mm.
When Data gets his head popped off, he doesn't have stringy, milky veins and stuff popping out.
Where's stringy milky? I just see brown wiring, which the color's weird, but
they look white to me. But okay,
it's not like there's a lot of water coming out.
No,
I mean, I don't see water at all. Quite frankly, I don't see liquid. I should say.
No, you're right.
And so Data wasn't. They made a big deal about Data not able to attach his head again. So he's got both of his hands up, holding his head in place.
Oh, that's right.
So
he's still holding it.
Are they saying that in the coming battle, because that's how they leave this, right?
Right.
They've got the monster squad there in front of the holodeck thingy, and then they have all of these, I guess Starfleet crew that are under the control of Rejak.
Right.
Coming to attack them.
It's kind of a silly ending because they're literally 2 steps away from the door. All they got to do is
I know you can just leave.
Well, and they still have 14 minutes of their brainwashing, so it's not like, oh, are they going to make it in time? So it's literally just they either got to make 2 steps or they got 14 minutes to get to the exit. Either way, I think they can do it.
And the way I justify this is they're staying in there and not running out. I would be running out because they're trying to save those crewmen that are enthralled to Rejak.
Sure.
Because otherwise, I wouldn't. Bye, later, Gators. I'm out of here.
We'll get you on the next time.
Now, personally, if I was in Data's situation, because if he keeps doing what he's doing right now at the end of the book in the final page, both of his hands are going to be taken up. Right. It's going to be rather awkward. I would do more of a C-3PO or something like that, where I take the head out, put it under one arm, and at least you got the other arm ready to
run around like a football player.
Well, yeah. Now you have to be very careful keeping the football facing forward so you can see what you're doing. But I think at least you'd free up one arm.
Sure. Well, we'll find out what happens next episode.
There you go. Looking forward to it, since it is to be continued.
Right.
And I love when they use the same next-gen font.
Oh, yeah, from Best of Both Worlds and things like
exactly.
that. You always hear that music. Dun, 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 dun.
Exactly. Dennis McCarthy or whoever did that. That was great. It's classic.
Thank you for watching this excerpt of episode 404 from the Star Trek Comic Book Review. This episode and all other episodes are available on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. Also, big thanks to the character art, and if you would like to share some character art, we would put it on the show. You can email us at the email above. Thank you, and please come back.